Hi, Sandra here, the Misophonia therapist. And today's question is there a link between misophonia and OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder? And as a therapist, I see many people with OCD, and they do not necessarily have misophonia. In fact, many of them don't. And vice versa. If you have misophonia, you are not necessarily going to have OCD. And I believe that misophonia can sometimes be mistaken for OCD. But the two conditions do have a few similarities, especially in my own observation. And I'm just going to go through 3 similarities now. So number 1, the intolerance of uncertainty. And it's a well-established theory that people with OCD feel very anxious when they don't have the answer to something straight away, or when they can't predict exactly what will happen in any given situation. Not being able to tolerate not knowing will often lead to safety behaviours where the sufferer is able to exert some control. So, for example, counting, checking, or performing a ritual. Avoidance plays a huge part here as well. So many of my clients with OCD will usually avoid putting themselves in situations where they are outside of their comfort zone. And in a very similar way, people with misophonia will often go to great lengths to avoid places or people who might trigger them. And it can become obsessive, compulsive. Number 2, an inclination toward perfectionism. Perfectionism is a type of anxiety, and it has nothing to do with striving to achieve something to feel proud of. Sufferers will often feel extremely frightened of failure or of being judged. They put enormous pressure on themselves to get it right all the time. And if they believe they can't get it right, they will just procrastinate or avoid. Perfectionism is driven by anxiety and unhelpful thinking about consequences, which in turn creates yet more anxiety. Sound familiar? And number 3, obsessive thoughts, unwanted thoughts. People with OCD are often plagued by unwanted and unpleasant thoughts, and it can feel very frightening and out of control. These thoughts might negatively predict an outcome or lead to a negative assumption about something, someone, or a particular situation. And obsessive is the key word here. The thoughts are repetitive and can go round and round in circles. And like misophonia, these thoughts can often occur when you're thinking about whether or not you're going to hear the trigger noise, and what will happen if you cannot escape, how you will be perceived if you have to leave the room or ask a person to stop making the noise, or how to avoid a particular situation. It can be all-consuming. Now, as you can see, there are indeed some similarities, psychological similarities, but they aren't the same condition. So from a therapist's perspective, I do believe that treating some of these symptoms, like the ones I've just mentioned, could be helpful to some people who have misophonia, especially if these symptoms might actually be heightening the intensity of the emotional response when we hear the trigger sound. Food for thought. So hopefully this video has been helpful or interesting, maybe both. And as ever, if you find my content helpful, just subscribe or follow me. And as ever, do feel free to drop me a direct message. Bye for now.